The 7 hidden archetypes that unlock the depths of the human mind beings are far more complex than we often understand, and within each of us, there are unseen forces at work, patterns, symbols, and energies that shape our decisions, perceptions, and even the way we love and fear. Carl Jung, in his monumental work, gave us tools to glimpse these forces. He called them archetypes, universal templates of human experience buried in the collective unconscious. But here's the irony of the human condition: you and I are often driven by things we do not fully comprehend. We act, feel, and think according to these hidden patterns, and yet we remain unaware of their presence. What happens when you uncover them? Does it free you, or does it burden you with a responsibility you didn't know you had? That's the question I invite you to sit with as we explore 7 of these hidden archetypes that, once understood, can radically transform the way we see ourselves and others. The first thing we need to understand is that these archetypes are not just abstract ideas, they exist within you. They are not something you can separate from yourself and observe from a distance. The moment you begin to see them consciously, they begin to influence your choices in ways that can either empower or destroy you. And yet they were always there. Jung called this process individuation the lifelong journey of integrating these hidden forces into the wholeness of your being. But the question is, are you ready to confront what lies beneath the surface of your mind? Let's begin with the archetype of the shadow. It is the part of yourself you do not wish to see. It contains the thoughts you suppress, the feelings you deny, the instincts you pretend you do not have. It is not evil, as many like to think. It is simply that which is hidden. And let me ask you this: what happens when you refuse to acknowledge a part of yourself? Does it disappear, or does it grow stronger, waiting for the moment when your guard is down to take over?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
The shadow is not just personal, it is collective. Think of the way society demonizes certain behaviors, desires, or emotions. These become shadows not just for individuals, but for entire cultures. And here's the paradox: the more we deny the shadow, the more power it gains. How many times have you seen someone who preaches moral virtue fall into scandal? How many times have you noticed yourself judging others for something you secretly fear within yourself? The shadow thrives on denial, and the only way to disarm it is to face it. But facing the shadow is not easy. It requires you to admit things about yourself that you would rather not see. It demands that you take responsibility for the parts of your life you've blamed on others. Ask yourself this: what parts of yourself have you been running from? What truths about yourself do you refuse to admit, even to yourself? The shadow will wait for you until you are ready, but the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to meet it on your own terms. This brings us to the Anima and the animus, the archetypes of the inner feminine and inner masculine. These are not about gender in the biological sense, they are about the energies within each of us. The anima is the feminine soul within the masculine psyche, and the animus is the masculine soul within the feminine psyche. They are the bridges between your conscious self and the depths of your unconscious. Here's the challenge: most of us project these archetypes onto others. The man who idealizes a woman as his savior is projecting his anima. The woman who sees a man as her ultimate source of strength is projecting her animus. These projections can lead to profound connections, but they can also lead to disillusionment, because no real person can live up to the idealized image you have of them. To truly integrate the anima or animus, you must stop seeking them outside of yourself. Instead, you must turn inward. The qualities you admire or despise in others are reflections of what you have not yet recognized in yourself. Are you willing to take back your projections? Are you willing to see that the love or hatred you feel for another is often a mirror of what you feel for yourself. As we move to the hero archetype, we must confront the idea of purpose. The hero is the part of you that seeks to overcome obstacles, to grow, to achieve something greater than yourself. But here's the trap: the hero often confuses external achievement with inner fulfillment. How many of us chase success, believing it will make us whole, only to find that the emptiness remains? The true hero's journey is not about slaying dragons or winning battles. It is about confronting your own limitations. It is about recognizing that the greatest enemy you will ever face is yourself. What battles are you fighting right now? Are they the ones that truly matter, or are they distractions from the deeper work you need to do? The archetype of the wise old man or the wise old woman represents guidance and wisdom. But wisdom is not something that can be given to you. It is something you must discover for yourself. The wise old man or woman within you is the voice that reminds you of what you already know but have forgotten. It is the part of you that can see beyond the immediate and understand the larger picture. But wisdom often comes at a cost. It requires you to let go of your illusions, your attachments, your certainties. Are you willing to question the beliefs you've held your entire life? Are you willing to admit that you might be wrong? True wisdom is not about having answers, it is about asking the right questions. Let's talk about the trickster, the archetype that disrupts your plans and forces you to think differently. The trickster is the part of you that thrives on chaos and rebellion. It is the voice that laughs when you take yourself too seriously. But it is also the force that can lead you to breakthroughs if you are willing to embrace the unexpected. The trickster challenges your assumptions and forces you to see the world in new ways. But it can also lead you astray if you are not careful. How do you know when the trickster is guiding you toward growth and when it is pulling you into self-destruction? The answer lies in your ability to stay present, to question without losing your grounding. Finally, we come to the self, the archetype of wholeness. The self is not the ego, it is the totality of who you are, both conscious and unconscious. It is the part of you that seeks integration, that longs to bring all the other archetypes into harmony. But wholeness is not the same as perfection. To be whole is to embrace your contradictions, to accept that you are both light and shadow, masculine and feminine, hero and trickster. The journey to the self is the most difficult of all because it requires you to let go of the identities you have built for yourself. It demands that you confront the fact that you are not who you think you are. What would it mean for you to let go of the story you tell about yourself? What would it mean to live not as the person you think you should be, but as the person you truly are? These archetypes are not separate, they are interconnected. The shadow cannot be integrated without the guidance of the wise old man or woman. The hero cannot succeed without embracing the trickster. The anima and animus cannot be understood without confronting the self. And so I challenge you, what would your life look like if you stopped running from these parts of yourself? What would it mean to live in alignment with the deeper truths of who you are? When we left off, we were exploring how these archetypes interconnect, shaping and reshaping the way we see ourselves in the world. Now let's dig deeper into how these hidden forces manifest in our relationships, influence the way we navigate conflict, and determine the transformations we undergo throughout life. Think about this for a moment. Every interaction you have with another person is a meeting of archetypes. You see the world not as it is, but as your archetypes dictate. If you do not recognize this, you will live your life in projection, seeing your shadow in others, placing your anima or animus onto partners, turning friends into heroes or villains, and mistaking tricksters for enemies. The question then becomes, how do you know whether you are truly seeing someone or merely seeing an extension of yourself? Take the shadow, for instance. It is rarely content to remain silent. If you refuse to face it within yourself, it will find expression in others. You might despise someone for their arrogance, their greed, their cruelty, when in reality, these are the very traits you suppress in yourself. The shadow is clever, it hides where you least expect it. Have you ever found yourself irrationally angry at someone beyond what the situation calls for? That anger is not always about them, it is often about the part of yourself you have not dealt with. Here's the problem: most of us believe the issue lies outside of us. If only that person would change, we think, then everything would be fine. But they are not the problem. The world is not the problem. The problem is that we have not yet embraced the fullness of who we are. And this is the paradox: the more you try to deny your shadow, the more you encounter it in the world. What would it look like for you to stop blaming others and start asking what they are reflecting back to you about yourself? Now consider the anima and animus. These archetypes are the source of so much joy, but also so much pain in our relationships. When you fall in love, it often feels like the other person completes you. They seem to embody everything you lack. But is it really them you love, or is it the projection of your inner ideal? And when that illusion fades, as it inevitably does, do you blame them for changing, or do you take responsibility for the fact that you were never truly seeing them in the first place? This is one of the hardest lessons to learn. The people in your life are not here to complete you. They are here to mirror you. The qualities you admire in them are qualities you have not yet fully embraced in yourself. The qualities you dislike are traits you have disowned within yourself. What would it mean for you to stop looking for completion in others and start reclaiming your projections? But let's take this further. The hero, for example, often struggles in relationships because they are so focused on the quest, on the goal, that they fail to see the needs of those around them. How often do you find yourself so consumed by your ambitions that you forget to nurture the people who support you? How often do you see others as obstacles to your goals rather than partners in your journey? Here's the truth: the hero cannot succeed alone. Every hero needs allies, mentors, and sometimes even enemies to help them grow. But the hero's greatest challenge is not the dragon or the mountain, it is the ego. The belief that you must do everything on your own, that you must prove yourself, is what keeps you trapped. True strength comes not from independence, but from interdependence. Are you willing to admit that you need others, not as stepping stones, but as equals? And then there is the trickster. This archetype is especially disruptive in relationships, but it is also essential. The trickster exposes the lies we tell ourselves and each other. It challenges the roles we play, the masks we wear, the routines we cling to. Have you ever been in a relationship where everything seemed stable, predictable, even comfortable until one day something happened that threw it all into chaos? That is the trickster at work. The trickster does not care about your plans. It cares about truth. It will shatter your illusions, even if it means breaking your heart. But this is not cruelty, it is a gift. The trickster forces you to confront what you have been avoiding. It asks, are you living authentically, or are you merely playing a role? Are you willing to let go of the image you have created of yourself, the image others have of you, in order to find what is real? Now let's turn to transformation. Every archetype has a role to play in your growth, but transformation begins and ends with the self. The self is the archetype of unity, the center of your being, the part of you that seeks wholeness above all else. But here's the irony: the self cannot emerge until the other archetypes have been integrated. This is why conflict is essential. Without the shadow, you would never confront your fears or limitations. Without the anima, animus, you would never learn to balance your inner masculine and feminine energies. Without the hero, you would never find the courage to grow. Without the trickster, you would never break free from old patterns. And without the wise old man or woman, you would never gain the perspective to see the larger picture. Transformation is not about becoming someone new, it is about becoming who you already are. But to do this, you must let go of who you think you are. And this is terrifying because your identity feels like your foundation. Who are you without your beliefs, your roles, your achievements, your failures? Who are you beneath the surface of your mind? Transformation demands sacrifice. The ego must die so that the self can emerge. This does not mean you lose your individuality, it means you transcend it. You become more than the sum of your parts. But this process is not linear. It is cyclical. You will face the same challenges, the same archetypes, again and again, each time at a deeper level. Are you willing to embrace this process, knowing that it will never truly end? Let's return to relationships for a moment. The people in your life are not random. They are mirrors, teachers, and sometimes even adversaries, placed in your path to help you grow. If you understand the archetypes, you can see the roles they are playing in your life. But more importantly, you can see the roles you are playing in theirs. What would it mean for you to stop trying to change others and instead focus on changing yourself? What would it mean to stop asking what you can get from others and start asking what you can give? Relationships are the ultimate arena for transformation because they force you to confront the parts of yourself you cannot see on your own. The self longs for connection, but not the kind of connection that comes from dependency or control. It longs for a connection that is rooted in truth, in mutual growth, in the recognition that we are all reflections of one another. But this kind of connection requires vulnerability. It requires you to let go of your defenses, to risk being seen for who you truly are. Are you willing to take that risk? As we close this part, I want to leave you with a question. What is the archetype that is most active in your life right now? Is it the shadow reminding you of the parts of yourself you have denied? Is it the hero pushing you to grow? Is it the trickster challenging your assumptions? Or is it the self calling you toward wholeness? As we move deeper into this exploration, I want you to consider something that might feel unsettling. Most of the struggles you face in life are not external, they are internal battles between the archetypes. Your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are not random, they are the echoes of these archetypes vying for expression. And until you begin to recognize this, you will remain caught in patterns you cannot explain, pursuing goals that never seem to satisfy, and fighting battles that seem to repeat endlessly. Let us reflect on the hero once again. This archetype is so deeply ingrained in human consciousness that it often defines the way we think about life itself. We imagine life as a series of challenges to be overcome, as though we are always climbing some great mountain. But here's what few people realize: the hero is not the end of the journey, it is only the beginning. Many of us get stuck in this archetype, believing that life is about constant striving, endless achievement, and proving ourselves to the world. But let me ask you something. How do you know when you've won? How do you know when the struggle is over? For many, the answer is that it never feels over. The hero archetype, when left unchecked, can become a trap. It convinces you that your worth is tied to your ability to conquer obstacles, to win battles, to achieve goals. But what happens when the battle is over? What happens when the mountain is climbed? Do you feel peace, or do you immediately look for the next challenge? This is where the trickster often enters the picture. The trickster disrupts the hero's quest, not out of malice, but because it knows that the endless pursuit of external goals will never lead to true fulfillment. It forces the hero to question the meaning of the journey itself. Have you ever had a moment where all your plans fell apart, or something unexpected derailed your progress? It's easy to see these moments as failures, but what if they were invitations? Invitations to stop, to reflect, to ask yourself, why am I doing this? What am I really seeking? The trickster is uncomfortable because it forces you to confront the illusion of control. It reminds you that no matter how carefully you plan, life is unpredictable. But this unpredictability is not something to fear, it is something to embrace. The trickster teaches flexibility, creativity, and the ability to adapt. It shows you that sometimes the path you are on is not the path you need to be on. If you listen to the trickster, it can lead you to the wise old man or woman. This archetype represents the wisdom that comes from letting go of the need to control, the need to achieve, the need to prove. It is the part of you that understands that life is not a straight line, but a circle, an endless cycle of growth, decay, and renewal. But here's the challenge: wisdom often comes at the cost of certainty. The wise old man or woman within you asks you to let go of your fixed beliefs, your rigid plans, your need for answers. It invites you to step into the unknown, to embrace mystery, to live with questions rather than rushing to conclusions. How comfortable are you with not knowing? How willing are you to admit that the answers you've clung to might no longer serve you? Let's turn now to the shadow, because this archetype is often the greatest obstacle to wisdom. The shadow thrives on denial. It feeds on the parts of yourself you refuse to see. But here's the thing about the shadow: it does not go away simply because you ignore it. In fact, the more you deny it, the more power it gains. Think about the moments in your life when you've reacted in ways that surprised even you. Maybe you said something cruel in anger, or acted out of jealousy, or found yourself drawn to something you knew was destructive. These moments are not accidents. They are the shadow revealing itself. And until you face it, you will remain at its mercy. But facing the shadow is not about defeating it. It is about integrating it. The shadow is not your enemy, it is a part of you. It contains your repressed desires, your untapped potential, your unacknowledged fears. To integrate the shadow is to become whole, but wholeness requires honesty. Are you willing to look at the parts of yourself you've spent your whole life avoiding? What would it mean to stop running from your darkness and start asking what it has to teach you? Now, let's revisit the anima and animus, because these archetypes often hold the key to this integration. They represent the bridge between your conscious mind and your unconscious depths. But here's the challenge: the anima and animus are not static, they evolve as you evolve. In their immature forms, the anima and animus can lead to projection and idealization. You might see your partner as a savior or as the source of all your problems. But as you grow, these archetypes mature. The anima becomes the source of creativity, intuition, and emotional depth. The animus becomes the source of clarity, logic, and strength. Together, they help you balance the masculine and feminine energies within yourself. But this balance is not easy to achieve. It requires you to confront the ways in which you have denied these energies in yourself. For example, many men are uncomfortable with their own vulnerability, their own emotional depth. They project these qualities onto women, seeing them as emotional or irrational while denying these traits in themselves. Similarly, many women are uncomfortable with their own strength, their own assertiveness. They project these qualities onto men, seeing them as domineering or controlling while denying these traits in themselves. What would it mean for you to reclaim these qualities? To stop seeing them as male or female, but as simply part of being human? What would it mean to embrace the parts of yourself you've been taught to suppress? And this brings us back to the self. The self is not just the sum of the archetypes, it is the space in which they all coexist. It is the center of your being, the part of you that is both individual and universal. But here's the paradox: the self cannot be reached by force. You cannot will yourself to become whole. Wholeness is not something you achieve, it is something you allow. This is why surrender is so important. Surrender is not about giving up, it is about letting go of the need to control. It is about trusting that the process of life will bring you exactly what you need, even if it is not what you want. But surrender requires humility. It requires you to admit that you do not have all the answers, that you are not in control, that you are part of something larger than yourself. And this is where transformation happens. When you stop fighting the archetypes, when you stop trying to control them, when you stop projecting them onto others, they begin to work together. The shadow becomes a source of strength. The anima and animus become sources of balance. The hero becomes a seeker of truth, not just achievement. The trickster becomes a guide. The wise old man or woman becomes a teacher, and the self becomes the foundation of your being. But transformation is not an endpoint. It is a process. You will never fully integrate the archetypes, because life is always changing, and so are you. The work is never done. But this is not a cause for despair, it is a cause for wonder. What would it mean to live your life as an ongoing process of growth, rather than a race to some final destination? Let me ask you this: what story are you telling yourself about your life? Is it the story of the hero, always striving? The story of the victim, always suffering? The story of the trickster, always defying? Or is it the story of the self, the story of wholeness, the story that contains all the others?